Hello, everyone. Welcome to Pints and Politics. I'm Drew. This is Mike, we're your host, and today we're talking about stuff going on at the Capitol. Because we just finished up week one, right?
Week one, exciting. Lots of stuff going on. Good legislation, well serving to the people of America. And Minnesota, I'm sorry.
Do I detect sarcasm?
Heavy on the sarcasm. Heavy on the
So,
sarcasm.
what happened this week?
Well, you were down there.
Yep,
You
Monday
know,
I was
first
down
day.
there and we talked about that.
So give us your impression. What did you think? The first day down there, opening session, you got to see some committee, you got to see
Yeah,
caucus.
and we
What'd you
touched
think?
we touched on this on our last week's episode, and so I guess, and now I've had time to think and process it, and I guess something I've noticed, and don't take this the wrong way, but I feel like we have two sides. Both are talking, but there's no communication happening, if that makes sense.
I'm sorry, what did you say? I wasn't listening.
Yeah. No, like, was it when I sat in on the floor, it really hit because, was it the Minneapolis representative? I think his name was Mohammed. Because he was speaking day one when you guys were talking about the school resource officer thing, and he was talking, and he actually said like, "Hey, we can't just be shouting one side to the other." But I think that's exactly what's going on.
Frazier, I think.
It could be.
Cedric Frazier.
Oh, is it? Okay, I'm
I think
sorry.
so.
That's my
Yeah.
bad.
Yeah. And those comments sound good on the floor.
Yeah, but I don't think it means anything.
Well, that's the point, I guess. There's been some who have called it or likened it to political theater.
Yes.
What's happening on the floor. By the time it gets to that point, the decisions, for the most part, have been made.
Yeah, I
What
feel like
takes
it's.
place in committee and so forth. On the Republican side, we've been calling for a special session to deal with this since the end of last session.
Is that for the resource officer?
The school resource
Yeah.
officers, right? So this is a big issue. I mean, the safety of kids in schools is paramount, right? Nobody wants to see their
Yeah.
kids.
Nobody wants dead kids.
Right, and we see more and more examples of violence in the schools with kids starting fights and destroying. I think there was two classrooms. I heard this week. That were just destroyed, thousands of dollars of damage. Yeah.
Yes.
So nobody wants to see that. And the argument that came up, I think, more than once was we don't want to see our schools turn into like a prison, right?
Yep.
So the question has to arise: why have our schools turned into such a violent, unsafe setting?
Which
And then
is
taking
weird.
out a school resource officer, does that make the situation better or worse?
Yeah. So on the one hand, you're trying to make it safer. On the other hand, they're saying we don't want to make school like prison. Am I following that
Well,
properly?
that was part of the argument this week. And
Okay.
they're kind of contradictory, isn't it?
Well, so I've never been to prison, first of all. But based on like movies that I've seen, stories that I've heard, they're pretty violent, aren't they?
Yeah, yes, they are.
Yeah, because you can get stabbed or beat up, and
There is a
so
lot of violence that takes place in prison.
so if there's a lot of violence that's going on in school and you can't leave, isn't wouldn't the violence make it kind of like a prison?
So there again, you have
Or
to
am I just speaking?
no, you have to ask the question: why has it turned into this?
Yeah.
Okay, if our schools aren't safe, that we need to have school resource officers in there, why aren't they safe?
Yeah.
Right? Let's deal with the root cause. And if you can't fix that problem, so maybe it's societal, maybe it's environmental, whatever the cases are, if you can't fix that, by taking the SROs out of school, does it make it safer?
I would say no.
I would think that would be the exact opposite.
Yeah. And so does the legislation that passed last session, does that remove the resource officer? Or?
What it did is it created language that would, I hope I say this right, but there's a liability that could fall on the school resource officers. So therefore, they could be liable if something happened, and they don't want to be put into that position.
So they could be sued, basically.
Basically.
Okay, so then all we have to do is change a couple of words.
Well, here was an idea. Why not change it so that? So let's go back a little bit. When I was in school,
Mm-hmm.
um, I got disciplined by
Yep.
teachers. And I can say that I honestly deserved everyone and more.
Okay.
You know, if the teachers could dispense um, corrective measures
Like they used to back in the
without
day.
right without retaliation or suing, would you need school resource officers in that situation?
Not for disciplining, no.
I wouldn't think so. So now there used to be when I was a kid, you could sign off on a waiver
Mhm.
basically that if you would the parents, are they okay with discipline, physical discipline. I remember getting racked on the knuckles with a ruler. That was when I was really young. um like I said, I think I deserved every one, but the teachers were backed up by the parents.
Yep.
If little Johnny was misbehaving and the teacher had to discipline them, the parents went to little Johnny's the parents were probably more severe than the teachers were when little Johnny got home.
Yep.
So we live in a society right now where don't correct my child. My child isn't the bad one.
Yeah.
It's always somebody else's fault, always somebody else's issue. Why is that school unsafe? And then if it is unsafe and you take the school resource officers out of there, what about the kids who no longer feel safe because they're gone? So you're
Mhm.
only looking at this and only taking the SROs out for a small subset of the students. But let me back this up a little bit. This argument, and you kind of got to have to put it into perspective with the SROs, is the same people, same groups that are pushing to take SROs out of the schools
Mhm.
are the ones that are calling for defund the police.
Yeah, which is funny because I remember, was it 4 years ago now? Yeah, almost
You're
four
getting
years
old.
ago. Yeah, I am getting old. Because they actually, Minneapolis actually did defund their police and removed officers. And then people were complaining that it's not safe to live in Minneapolis no more.
So look at the number of crimes or the amount of crime that
Oh
has
yeah.
gone up in Minneapolis. They are hundreds of officers down in certain parts of the metro, and across the state they're down. I heard the number, but I don't remember it off the top of my head. And people, especially in high crime districts, are saying, we want more police.
Hmm.
We want more law enforcement. And yet you've got some groups that are calling for defunding the police and less police presence. Well, why?
Yeah.
We are punishing law abiding citizens
For
through
no reason. For
legislation,
no reason.
and yet we're emboldening criminals by not having police there and not enforcing the laws.
So, what does this lead to, per se? If you had to logic out a conclusion here.
Well, is it almost like the destabilization of a society?
Yeah. And then what do you do? I'm almost thinking like a chaos through order or order through chaos, my bad. Because you create this chaos and then you have a solution. And that solution you get people scared to vote the way you want them to almost.
It almost seems that way.
It feels that way. I'm not saying it specifically, don't quote me on that, but it's starting to feel that way.
Create a problem and then offer a solution. All too often. Um, what about the kids who have been attacked in schools?
Yeah.
What about the teachers who have been attacked in schools? How do they feel about SROs coming out and not being allowed in the
Have
schools?
they been asked?
Well, the voices that are out there are only talking about, the turning schools into prisons and so forth.
Okay.
And there's those arguments that we're turning our public education system into pipelines to prison.
I could see that because you're not really I guess it's been a lot. I'm old. I'm getting old, Mike. Thanks. No, that's gonna be the theme of the night, guys. Drew's getting old. He's old. Like when I was in school, we still had like I think there was still home ec and there was first aid classes taught and there was shop classes. So not only were you taught your sciences and your maths but you were also taught skills. And I don't think they're pushing the skills education as much anymore. And I don't think that the atmosphere of school is really conducive to a society that can sustain itself. And when you bring someone who can't sustain themselves, they're going to resort to crime, which will lead them in prison.
Well, and I think we talked about the general change in society,
Hmm.
in parenting, in
Oh,
children, and so
absolutely,
forth.
yeah.
And, I hear it from teachers in my own area, especially the ones that have been around a long time, the discipline issues that they have to deal with are not like what they dealt with 20 years ago.
Yeah.
It has been this slide, I guess you would say. So really, we have to ask the question: are the things that are being taught, promoted, and so forth, are the structures as far as the family, um, discipline, things like that, are they working? There used to be this mentality: spare the rod and spoil the child. Now, did that get used to excess? Sure, it did. There was discipline that went too far. But have we gone so far in the other direction that everybody gets a trophy?
Oh my
And we don't want
goodness.
to hurt somebody's feelings because, little Johnny was bad, but by disciplining little Johnny, we may emotionally scar them. At the same time, you're not preparing them for life.
Yeah, then when you give everyone a trophy, accomplishment means nothing,
Right.
pretty much. And so you have kids, and your kids done sports?
A little bit. Some of the boys have played or football. The girls get involved in a few different
Okay.
activities, but
Have you had to deal with the everyone gets a trophy thing?
well, I think my kids know better than that.
Okay.
Not directly. We've talked about that. Good behavior rewarded,
Yep.
bad behavior has repercussions. So
Hard work gets
hard work
rewards.
gets rewarded.
Yeah.
It's life. And are we not teaching it? And there I wonder again, when we had parents who could stay at home,
Yep.
you know, one of the parents would stay at home. Now we have this two parents in the workforce.
Hmm.
And the structure that kids are in nowadays, so they'll come home from school, be in front of the TV, do their homework and stuff. The parents are gone till supper time or whatever, and the structure where there's no parenting or there's lack of parenting because of the way society has changed in a way. A family can't survive without two parents working anymore.
Yep. And that's economics.
Economics, exactly. And that drive, you can kind of put that on the shoulders of government as well, because when women came out of the house and into the workforce, that's more people paying taxes as well.
Yep. More people paying taxes, and then you have to send the kids somewhere. You can't leave the kids by themselves, so you can send them to a school where you can have big lobbyist money kind of pushing certain policies for the school district.
It's interesting. Sometime we'll have to talk about education,
Yeah.
the education system, the folks that were in charge of it, like Dewey, John Dewey, the Dewey Decimal
Oh,
System.
really?
Read what he had said about public education and the purpose of it. Henry Ford, I think, was big on that too, and
Rockefeller was,
Rockefeller was.
and I think he's the one who set up the bell system where you're sitting for a period and then you have the bell and
Right, but read what they have to say about education. It is very interesting.
oh,
I think Dewey had talked about basically the dumbing down of people.
yeah, that makes sense
And
because
yet he is the one that's supposedly the founder of the modern education system.
really the only
Yes.
thing I know about Mr. Dewey is that he has some weird number thing for organizing books.
The Dewey Decimal System.
Yep. So I can find a book if I know that.
Yeah.
So that's
But look
about.
it up. His
I'll
quotes
look
and
him
stuff
up.
on education are
Well,
very
it's
interesting.
funny that you say that because back in the time of chattel slavery, like I'm going to use that specifically, a little history lesson, is that slaves weren't allowed to read. And why was that?
Well, I think Frederick Douglass talked about that, and an uneducated slave was easier to maintain and control.
Yep.
Right. So
So
an uneducated populace
it's easier to manipulate and control.
is,
It's. I know
well,
I've mentioned that slaver's mindset before, but like if you're gonna own somebody and control them completely, yeah, you're gonna be the smartest guy in the room to them. You got to be that highest authority,
makes
right?
control a lot easier,
It
doesn't it?
100% does.
And our founding fathers did talk about a well-educated populace. So it
Hmm.
seems counterproductive to what's going on right now. The Department of Education, I think, started in the 70s.
Okay.
And at that time, and I don't quote these numbers, but I think we were at like second or third
Yeah.
worldwide as far as education
As a nation?
as a nation.
Oh yeah.
And now here we are, almost 50 years later. after the Department of Education was started, and I think we're down in the 30s
I could see that.
nation,
I
worldwide.
know illiteracy is going through the roof because
So,
we keep lowering the standards for graduation.
well, lowered expectations
Yeah.
lead to lower results.
Yep.
We started off talking about what happened at the Capitol, and we just delved right into
Yeah, now we're talking about how
education.
to enslave a populace.
Yeah, it's we kind of veered off course there a little bit. Let's steer this ship back and
Yeah.
talk about what happened at the Capitol. So you were there for the SROs.
I
That
was
was a big
I was
discussion
there on
this week.
Monday, so I was all week. Okay. And then I sat in on that tax committee. Did you guys get anywhere on that?
This first week, especially with almost any of these committees, there's not a lot of bills and stuff that are prepped and ready to go to be at that point. So those bills are going to end up going through many committees, and taxes is usually towards the end of that process, if not
Okay.
the end of that process. So we're usually downstream from other committees.
Oh no.
And we had some stuff in economic development and taxes. The commissioner, Mark Hort, was in and going through the numbers and stuff like that. Um, Educational to see where things are. He is optimistic, about
Okay.
some of the numbers and stuff in the state. Um,
Is
when I
that a
look
good
at
thing or a bad thing?
Well, optimism is generally a good thing,
Okay.
and a positive spin on things. Tell me a salesman that doesn't have a positive spin on
Oh,
things.
there's always one.
Exactly. So, yeah, I look at the numbers and I question some of his optimism on some of these things.
Okay.
We've seen so much value leave the state of Minnesota,
Yeah.
that's hard to overcome. It really is.
Well, yeah. Well, when when gas prices are so high, you can get somebody in Fargo working in Moorhead, or someone living in Moorhead working in Fargo. They'll make a lot more money there than they would in Moorhead.
Well, the border, the counties, cities, and stuff around the border.
Mm-hmm.
Think of the challenges when the
Oh yeah.
taxes in these other states are so much lower than ours, and people would rather drive across the border to fill up. They'll stop at the shop, go or whatever store,
Yep.
Sam's Club or somewhere else, get their fuel, and then come back to Minnesota
Yep.
because you're going to spend more in Minnesota. Really puts those towns, stores at a disadvantage along
Oh
the
yeah.
line.
It doesn't promote growth.
Not at all. Not at all. So we'll see. I have my a little bit less optimism when it comes to the business forecast, especially when last session at the beginning of the session they stated that we projecting a recession.
Yeah, I can see that.
So nobody wants to see that, but we're
Yeah.
creating a situation where we're taxing businesses and people out of the state.
Yeah. And that's so we can do stuff like child tax credit,
Well,
other things.
if everything was so positive in the state, then tell me why we would have to give free lunches for all because people can't afford their kids' lunches.
Yeah, right?
Every major bill that they were trying to pass last year was because of the people are struggling.
Mm-hmm.
Bill after bill after bill, people are struggling, struggling, and yet Minnesota's doing good economically.
Yeah.
Well, if Minnesota was doing good economically, we would be able to pay for our kids' lunches.
Right. Yeah, so my thing is like, people are struggling. Maybe that's a hint that like, hey, let's back off and let them succeed.
Yeah, and the governor when he was running for election
Mhm.
promised the people $2,000 back, and he was beating up in
Was
his
it two?
appointment.
I thought it was
2,000.
I thought it was one.
Nope, he was saying $2,000
Okay.
back per taxpayer. He was beating up on Jensen as being the rich and
Yeah.
out of touch, and he was going to fight to get $2,000 back to every taxpayer. When it was all said and done, you got $260 back, and you're going to get taxed federally on that in the state of Minnesota. So
Okay.
consider that. I had a bill that would have given $3,000 back
Mhm.
to every taxpayer because that money is much better in the hands of the taxpayers than
Mhm.
it is in the hands of government.
Absolutely. I'm just trying to calculate how much money Tim Walz owes me, like specifically, like
Oh, wow.
specifically him
Plus interest,
plus interest. Oh crap, dude! Now I gotta do
mental
math.
anguish.
I'm too old to do math, Mike. I really am. Like I haven't done math since high school. Even like I was done with all my college math in high school. It was great.
So the other thing that's going on down at the Capitol, we'll steer this back in that
Yeah,
direction. You saw a little bit of it, the what we lovingly call the SOB, which means State Office Building, not something else.
well named.
Yes, the State Office Building, or what is also called the
SOB
SOB,
or the sob.
is going through a major renovation and
Oh
addition,
yeah.
which will end up costing the taxpayers about $750 million.
And so what is this?
Projected.
What's this add-on supposed to give you? Because you already have an office.
I wish we had drawings of it here as a huge expansion of that. And the building is amazing. The building that's as it is already doesn't need some retrofitting. It's an old building. It needs some ventilation, security, things like that. But to the tune of $750 million, no, it doesn't. It didn't need to get expanded. It doesn't need all this other stuff. Um, and it's going to, this is projected and it's an open, oh shoot, I'm forgetting the terminology. Basically, that's 750 million. It's it will go above that.
Yeah, probably.
I would bet dollars to donuts that it's probably going to be closer to $1 billion by the time it's done.
Billion?
I bet you money.
Crap.
Tell me a government project that hit its projected numbers.
Yes, I don't.
I couldn't find one.
So those are the big things for this week, huh?
And an interesting point, and I think you were in caucus or when you were there when it was said, but the tunnel
Yep.
that goes from the SOB
Oh
to the
yeah.
Capitol. So that tunnel is used by politicians and people going back and forth to the Capitol to the SOB. And because that tunnel is closed off now because of the construction, the politicians will have to walk from the Capitol across the street to the SOB on the outside. And it was mentioned that if we're late in session or coming out or later in the night, to go across the street with somebody else or in groups because of the crime around the Capitol. For your own safety, politicians, Minnesota or the capital area is not that safe, and be careful. That to me should send chills up.
It's ironic. It's just ironic. Just imagine being a person who's like, okay, so we're in charge of keeping the people safe and making rules in order to keep people safe. By the way, go in groups because there's high crime and we're not going to do anything about it. Is that? It's a little ironic, huh?
It seems rather odd, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So they doubled and they're trying to bring more officers to the Capitol because of the high crime. I think they were going to just about double
Oh, really?
security at the Capitol. Now let's bring that right back to the SROs.
No, let's bring that back to defund the police.
Let's bring that back to the SROs first, and then we'll talk about defund the police. So if your politicians are so important that we need to double the staff to keep them safe around the Capitol, but your children, we're going to take the security or the deterrence out of the school. Think about that. Think about how important those politicians are and how little importance your children in that argument.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess the question now is, who's more important, your politician or your child?
That's right. Consider that.
Yeah.
When they can be surrounded by security and people with guns, and yet they're going to take away your guns or try to do that,
No,
consider that.
Is security allowed to have guns on state ground, on Capitol grounds?
They do. The state patrol has.
Yeah,
Guns.
but isn't it a gun-free zone?
No.
No, it's not.
No. You can conceal and carry.
Oh.
There's no security checks at the Capitol
Okay.
that I know of.
I suppose. I mean,
Maybe there is a sign somewhere that deters that. I don't know.
I guess I don't know. I'll look for it next time.
Maybe they should put a sign up by the Capitol that says no crime allowed. And that would deter things.
That'd end it all.
You know
That's how
that
it works.
sarcasm we started off with? Yeah, we're coming right back to
Oh, I'm
that.
being genuine. That would end it all.
Please, criminals, stay away from the Capitol. That will take care of it.
Actually, please, criminals, stop doing crime. That'd be
There
great.
we go.
That's me being genuine. Yes.
Oh,
That's
that's
funny.
interesting. So there again,
Yeah, well, it's the same
look.
argument for defund the police. If you want police in your communities, you should want them in schools, and you should want them protecting you and the person you elect as well. But the most important one is probably your children.
So defund the police, what you mentioned before.
Hmm.
Same thing. Your communities, they want to defund the police, but your politicians, they want to bring more staff in to keep them safe.
Yeah.
If you're a politician and you believe we need to defund the police and we need to take away guns from law-abiding citizens, set the example. Do away with all the security at the Capitol, and tell me how well that'll.
Well, I mean, that'd be just in line with everything that's said, and if you're gonna talk the talk, you should walk the walk.
There you go.
And the thing is, when we talk about defund the police, they have a job to do. You remove the people doing the job still needs to get done. Someone needs to protect your kids, and at some point, that someone's going to end up doing that.
And the Capitol Police, Sergeant at Arms and their staff, they're amazing people. And I think the world of them. They are on top of stuff. They're paying attention to things all the time. They're great. And I love
Oh
what
yeah,
happened there.
they really are. I mean,
Yeah,
was it, I think
true.
what was it? I didn't have a guest pass right away.
Oh yeah.
They came up to me. I almost got frisked.
My bad. I have a tendency to forget that part of it, and they have a tendency to remind
Yeah.
me that my guest
But again,
should
they're
pass.
doing their job. There's
That's
nothing
right.
wrong with that.
That's right.
No faulting.
That's right. The staff does an amazing job there, and I really compliment them. And I feel so much better that they're there.
Yeah.
You know. But there again, if the politicians that are saying we need to defund the police and get rid of the school resource officers out of our schools because it's a bad look, well, set the example.
Yeah.
Get rid of the
Absolutely.
Capitol Police. Get rid of the sergeant at arms and their staff. Set the example when it comes to being a sanctuary state.
Oh, absolutely. That's coming down the
All of the
pipe too, isn't it?
politicians that are involved and want to become a sanctuary state, set the example. How many illegals are you willing to take into your house? How many are you ready to bring into your house?
Dude, I think they're doing
Set
that
the example.
they're doing that on the East Coast somewhere. They're trying to get the migrants into people's homes. Sorry to tangent on this, but I just heard that
Well,
the other
and
day.
there's different things that are going on across the country where shutting down a school in order to house.
If that was in New York.
That was in New York.
No, but like this is actual in people's homes. Like,
And I know that idea has been pushed for a little while. They're saying because of the housing shortages, we need to basically, that this has been pushed. If you're, let's say, out here in greater Minnesota,
Mhm.
you have a house there, maybe it's 3 bedrooms or something like that. But because of our aging population, there's only 1 or 2 people living there,
Mhm.
that you should give up your home so that somebody else can live in it and you can get a smaller home. Problem with that is because of the housing market, you could sell what you have or let somebody live in your place, but you can't find another place to live in.
yeah, the housing market is just trash.
Right.
Absolute garbage. Like there are $80,000 homes that are selling for like 400,000. It's
Well, there again, if these politicians come up with such great ideas, set the example. Open up your house, your apartment. How many government buildings do we have where people are working from home? So there's office buildings and stuff that are sitting open, empty. Open it up. If you want to bring, fix the housing problem, open it up. So
that's interesting. It makes me think of this book that one of the books I'm reading, where it defines what a territory is. A territory is defined as a area that's defended, right? You just open up to everyone. It's not really much of a territory anymore.
Well, we try to talk in a common sense manner,
Yeah.
and it seems like some of these ideas are not that difficult to understand.
Yeah, you would think.
You would think. And yet, we live in a world now where people don't think even in a common sense manner anymore.
I don't think they even feel in a common sense manner either. So you can't call them feelers.
Yeah.
Well, it's real interesting. So kind of excited to see. Like I'm not saying I'm excited, like I'm happy, but I'm just like kind of my heart rate's up, just kind of just to watch what goes on this session.
Yeah, and there's different ideas. This is a bonding year, and I think
Yep.
that came up the other day. This is talking about infrastructure spending, roads and bridges, things like that. And I have so many issues with the quote unquote quote budget bonding projects and stuff because what's real bonding projects? It's roads, bridges, infrastructure.
Yep.
It's not maintenance and upkeep to state buildings already, and that's a big portion of what's considered infrastructure. That's not it. Special projects, rugby fields in Anoka or wherever they are.
There's rugby in Anoka.
Yeah, there's a sports complex that went up, I think 18 million or something like that, northern part of the cities. Yeah, that is not an infrastructure project. It's a want.
Yeah.
You burned through $19.5 billion last session, and now you're going, well, how are we going to pay for these projects? Maybe you shouldn't have wasted the 19.5 billion and spent it on these roads and bridges, the
Yeah.
needs that we have, the water issues, roads and bridges, but it becomes a slush fund for special projects.
Yeah.
And, you almost got to look at it and think, it's almost like the money laundering that's gone on in Ukraine
Oh yeah.
on just a local level, state level, I should say.
Yeah, that's kind of sad. But well, hopefully you guys can write your congressman on that one. And
Yeah,
just
talk to your
yeah,
politicians.
spending is something we need to get under control. I believe you were the one who told me that Minnesota is a high tax state, but
Well,
it's also
actually,
argued that it's a high service state, which is weird because that means that the government believes themselves to be charitable.
that was Comrade Walls that
Yep.
said that.
Yeah.
We're a high tax, but we're also a high service state. And
Yeah, no, it's really interesting because what was it? The other day I was actually speaking to a priest, and he told me that you can't force love because it's no longer love if it's forced, right? That's kind of part of why we have free will.
well, charity.
Yeah, and charity is an act of love, and you can't force charity.
It's
So
no longer charity when
it's
the
no
government
longer
takes
charity.
your money to give to somebody
Yeah.
else. That is not charity.
No. So it's just kind of just a little thing I've been thinking about this week since I've heard that. And I guess now I'm sharing it with you guys.
There's one of those deep thoughts we got to set a whole, you know,
Yeah. Yeah, no,
half hour.
we'll dedicate some to charity at some point. We'll dedicate some to education at some point.
So the other thing that we've been talking about every week for the last couple of weeks,
Mhm.
caucuses,
Oh yeah, that's coming up quick. Let's see. This is
February 27th. So we are getting closer and
oh
closer to
my
caucuses.
goodness.
This
Yeah.
is that process where you get involved,
Yeah.
become a delegate, choose your candidates.
Yeah.
And then when we have those candidates and we have that endorsement, we need to back our endorsed candidates.
Mhm.
That's the voice of the people. That's the delegates deciding who they want.
Yeah.
Um, and when people tip the scales in the favor after the endorsement or against the wills of the people, we have some issues there.
Yeah. Yeah, no, big next couple of weeks because we got caucuses, and then on March 5th we have our primary
Is it
votes.
March 5th?
Super Tuesday.
Wow, that's coming up quick.
Pretty sure it's March 5th. I'll look it up. I'll get fact checked on it, I'm sure. But no,
Are we
it's
that
super
popular?
quick.
We're getting fact checked now?
No, our editor fact checks for us.
Oh,
That's one of
thanks,
the
Ethan.
things.
He does a great job. I enjoyed sitting down this week with Ethan as well.
Yeah,
It's good to see him. Great conversation. Had a good time.
yeah, he's a good guy. Um, but yeah, no, it's I'm pretty sure it's on March 5th this year.
Okay.
I mean, it's yeah.
I'll take your word for it.
And so like that's also really important. And it's just the easiest way to get involved is honestly you just write a letter. It's a great way to do it. It takes 5 minutes to have your voice heard in at least some way.
Yeah. It's important. I mean, this is people are meant to be involved in their government. This is where it starts.
And that's the structure is like, you know, as a if we're gonna be a government of the people, by the people, for the people, you gotta put in an effort and I swear I'm going somewhere with this. It's gonna be work. It's got to be work. It's not convenient to be in charge of yourself. Leadership in and of itself is a burden when you do it proper. And like it's not about when you're a leader, it's not about you, it's about the people that you are leading.
I know we're probably getting close to time here, but
Yeah.
the other thing that I was going to say is resolutions. We're
Resolutions.
seeing a lot of that, not just on the
Oh
caucus
yeah.
level, but
County
at the
level.
county level. I talked to some of the county commissioners this week, thanked them for the resolutions they had in their opinions, voicing their opinions against the flag design changes
Yep.
and the seal design changes. And there are ones that are stepping up now and saying, we don't want to be a sanctuary state.
Yep.
And they're voicing their opinions, and I appreciate that. And now some people will say it doesn't make a difference. These resolutions
Oh,
don't
it
make any.
matters. It
I
matters.
agree. I agree. This is the voice of the people stepping up, and it's the court of public opinion. They need to have their voices heard, and this is the government. So, I mean, this is how it's supposed to work. We're supposed to let our politicians know the squeaky wheel gets the grease. If our counties are sending out those resolutions and letting everybody know, I believe they're powerful, and
Yeah.
they catch attention. Todd and Wadena both signed the resolution to
Well, the
reject the flag
well, the
changes.
flag change that goes from I know as far as Douglas County all the way through Wayne County, like straight through
Yep, center part of the state here.
the entire
Company
center part.
sense, good
Yeah.
people. Yep.
Yeah.
And those resolutions, I think they're great. And I'm
Oh, it is.
proud of the people, our county commissioners who have stepped up and said, this is our voice. These are the people, are the constituents. That's what they want. And are taking the time and the effort to do this. I think this is great. And kudos to you guys for doing that. You folks, I'm sorry.
Yeah. Yeah. You can't say you guys anymore.
I
What's wrong with
know.
you?
I know. I meant to.
Yeah, that's all good. We'll wrap it up. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching Pints and Politics. I'm Drew. Mike, it's been a pleasure speaking with you guys tonight. God bless.
Take care.